everybody. It's unfortunate that I have to talk about this situation, but given the recent events that happened with Luminara, I figured it was time to talk about my experience specifically with the CEO of Luminara, Cam. This is my personal experience with Cam. This is not reflection of the talents that were working with Luminara or editors or artists or anything like that. I'm recounting simply my experience with him, which occurred during the summer of 2025. Cam, the CEO of Luminara, knowingly used my name to legitimize the company, falsely telling others, including investors, that I was assigned talent throughout the 2025 Off-Kai weekend. Prior to Off-Kai, we had one voice call to discuss me hosting a potential game show in which I asked for a contract. I want to give some context as to why the situation was particularly heartbreaking and frustrating for me. I'm so grateful for the wonderful opportunities in life VTubing has really afforded me. It's really inspired me to want to pursue bigger goals that I've been curious about as a person my entire life. One of those goals is that I would love to be an MC and do live work with crowds. You know, whether that's hosting an event at a convention, introducing creators, moderating panels. I love speaking with people. I love making people laugh. And I've been trying to focus on that recently within my VTubing journey. So I actually reached out to Luminara first, interested in a proposal to host a game show, as they were looking for creators, specifically VTubers, to work with. Kamana and I had 2 meetings in total. One was a voice call in Discord discussing the initial proposal of me being a host for a game show, and the second was an in-person meeting at Off-Kai, which I'll get into later. In our first call, Kamana introduced himself as an expert in editing, social media management, and particularly knowledge behind YouTube. He confidently expressed his ability to turn one's channel into a booming business and had worked with a lot of different creators, often highlighting that he did it for free and volunteered most of the time. He said he worked with a team of editors, and this was my first red flag that I initially ignored, because how are you supposed to build up a channel with a bunch of editors, but you're saying it's volunteers so the talent doesn't need to pay? Something wasn't adding up, because how are those editors being paid for their work? Where is the flow of money coming from? And how is this business model sustainable? However, I was naive and eager at the opportunity to make the first step towards a long-time dream of mine. I was open to his business proposal about this game show and being the host of it, in which he was also looking at some other creators potentially to be a part of it. However, I've worked in the entertainment industry for a long time, and I really wanted my ducks in a row, so I wanted to see a contract. He did send over this contract, but I had concerns and notes, and had expressed to him that I would like to go over these notes in person, and I was looking forward to seeing him at Off-Kai, where we could discuss these notes in person. I was hoping to do this meeting privately, as we were going to be discussing the breakdown of this contract and the details within it. However, what I had assumed was going to be a private business meeting between myself, another VTuber colleague who was also potentially going to be involved, and him, it turned into a gathering of multiple people, including 2 other VTubers and 2 Luminara staff besides Kamana. This public environment was not appropriate in which to discuss the intricate details of my contract, as these other VTubers might have had different contract terms. When the meeting started, Kamana had teased that he had a gift for us, and it was at that time he slid a collectible trading card with the Luminara logo on it, and I flipped it around and it featured my logo and my artwork. Artwork that he had no permission to print from neither myself nor the artist for this promotional item for his company. It was at this meeting that I was simply told I was talent. I was very confused, as I hadn't signed anything, and I simply was interested in potentially hosting a game show. Additionally, at this time, I was already in conversation with a separate agency to potentially sign with them. Cam was very good at making himself seem reputable. He boasted about being Zentrea's manager at the time, as well as the one who built her YouTube channel. He claimed his unusual management techniques had caused some tension between himself and certain VTuber agencies, because he quote unquote told it like it was, and quote unquote, did a better job than any of their managers. He claimed that he simply wanted to help and uplift others, taking nothing for himself. In our conversation, when I pressed to understand how the business functioned, what his 5-year roadmap was, examples of how a similar business model worked, out in the past for him, he did not provide examples and simply repeated the same script. Quote unquote, I just want to help people and I don't want anything out of this. I was very skeptical, and when I shared his answers to my husband, my manager, and my then editor, who is a very close friend, they confirmed my suspicions. They also revealed that he, when speaking to them during my meet and greet at OFCI, admitted to clout chasing. An example being he had VTubers at OFCI sign a white poster board with plans to get meetings with them, lied about his involvement with certain VTuber companies, and generally was narcissistic and arrogant. Throughout the entirety of OFCI, I kept on having people come up to me asking about Luminara, as they were told I was talent, that they were considering joining because I was signed, quote unquote. I attended the Off-Kai industry mixer, and during the event, a VTuber manager from an agency shook my hand and said, "Congratulations for joining Luminara." And at the time, I was caught off guard and confused, not knowing how to respond. This rumor had spread so far and wide, and it was completely false, and it was out of my control. It was very frustrating, and so much of my energy at Off-Kai last year was spent dispelling it in conversations. At one point, during a private party, a VTuber attendee came up to me as I was leaving, sobbing, begging me not to work with Luminara because of how callous Cam was. And I did not know this person. They had simply just heard the rumors of me being affiliated with the company. When I confronted Cam about his behavior, I expressed that I was not comfortable with the speed in which he was navigating the entire situation, especially with no signed contracts, in addition to his unprofessional behavior. He denied ever mentioning my name as a talent to other VTubers, which is verifiably false, and said he cannot, quote unquote, control rumors or what other people say. I still received inquiries and messages about my involvement with him and Luminara, as did my team members, which is what compelled me to publicly discuss me not being associated with Luminara, despite me being very uncomfortable discussing my business publicly like this. After I shared these social media posts, I started to receive messages from many VTubers who wanted to know the full story because, yes, they were told that I was becoming talent or that I had already signed, and they had questions, but they also specifically saw a lot of red flags with Cam. For several days after Off-Kai, I was on nonstop phone calls. It was exhausting, fighting for my reputation behind the scenes. I was also informed that Cam had stated that I was, quote unquote, convinced not to sign or join Luminara by a specific VTuber friend of mine, and used this person as an excuse as to why I had no interest in joining, and used them as a scapegoat as to why I wanted nothing to do with Luminara. Not the fact that I very clearly told him and communicated that I was unimpressed with how he conducted himself throughout the weekend. It was after this experience that I started working with an entertainment lawyer for any and all contracts I receive in order to protect myself from this happening ever again. This was just my story. I was incredibly frustrated at being led on in terms of an opportunity, and not only that, having my reputation and my name used to trick and persuade people to join a company that clearly did not have a plan for long-term success, ultimately taking advantage of people's dreams and hopes and aspirations for their own journeys as VTubers. This experience came only a few months after finding out that I was rejected the final audition stages of a VTuber agency that I was really hoping to join. So the 1-2 punch was pretty devastating to my self-esteem. It was around this time that I also was navigating an incredibly personal, difficult medical situation. So everything kind of compounded at the same time, which was incredibly frustrating and heartbreaking, and made for a pretty rough summer in 2025. And my heart breaks for all the other stories I've been reading and hearing about. I'm so sorry if you've been affected by Cam. You deserve so much more.